Good morning, everybody. I'm with Malcolm Dorsey, CEO of Torr Metals. The symbol for Torr is TMET, T-M-E-T on the TSX Venture. And Torr has the Kolos Copper-Gold Project in BC. And the company recently put out some really interesting news and update on the drill program that's ongoing there at Kolos. So Malcolm, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me again, Robert.
So the drill program has been going on since October. I think you're pretty deep into it by now, just based upon the latest updates that I've read. So tell us what's happening at Kolos and the Bertha Target.
Yeah, so with our Bertha target, really we're working up a target there that's just about 28 kilometers to the southwest of the New Afton copper-gold porphyry mine. So New Afton, really that is the comparable that we're looking at. New Afton is really unique when you look around in British Columbia at alkalic porphyry systems. It's interesting in that it has a high level emplacement. It's very high grade, much higher grade than the average copper-gold porphyry in BC. Historically, it produced just out of a surface pit 23 million tons at 0.9% copper and 0.6 grams per ton gold. So that kind of grade has continued as that project developed. So you can just know from that, just with the average grade in BC being about 0.4 to 0.5% copper equivalent, this is much higher than that. And then you're looking at a system that's got really strong supergene alteration oxidation processes. So it was all these elements that we were looking for. And when I first saw the Bertha target, really what I saw was the same host geology, most importantly being a Picrite unit, which I know I've talked a little bit about that with you, but Picrite is extremely important in this case. Really, it's one of the only other occurrences that I know of, if not the only occurrence of Picrite outside of the New Afton Ajax trend. With that, it provides a really iron-rich geological unit that is a really good reducing agent. So geochemically, this is a perfect geochemical trap for concentrating mineralization along the boundary. And that is really what New Afton did. It's the mineralization there is all concentrated along this Picrite unit. Now, we also had a historical exploration pit at Bertha. It produced just about 30 tons at just over 2% copper, so very high grade, very comparable to what you might see at New Afton. And most importantly, I saw native copper, a little bit of chalcocite, and all of that was concentrated along the margins of a Picrite. So that Picrite unit, we were able to pick it out with our IP surveys that we just completed this past August. Really, it shows up as a really strong conductivity. You can see that in our latest news release, any of the purple colors, those purple colors are the strong conductivity of the Picrite unit. And what I really liked to see was that our chargeability anomaly was adjacent to this high conductivity of the Picrite, and the Picrite was forming the footwall. So just underneath that chargeability anomaly. So the chargeability anomaly, when you look at that, the colors are going to be more of those high pinks, up to 20 millivolts. So that really spoke to me that here's potential of a large-scale supergene oxidation system exhibited by the chargeability, but it's adjacent to this really strong geochemical and structural trap with the Picrite. So with the drilling, that's what we went to test. So we tested the uppermost sections. Based on what we saw in that drilling, we were initially planning to only do 1,500 meters of drilling this fall. We were going to go up to 200 meters vertical depth. But what we've seen so far has really reinforced the exploration model that we have for this target. And so we have gone further than that. So we've expanded the drilling up to 2,800 meters. So far in this news release, we announced that we had drilled up to 450 meters or so vertical depth. So that was up to hole number 7. And really what we're now doing is we're testing out along that Picrite boundary. We're testing the chargeability anomaly. And what we see within that chargeability is just really a system that's blown apart. So some sort of hydrothermal magmatic fluids come up, they're mineralized. The system basically shatters the boundary of the Picrite unit. Anywhere that you have pickrite within that chargeability anomaly is where you can get reducing reactions. So essentially in this supergene weathering process, you have removal of the copper from copper sulfide, such as chalcopyrite, and it gets reprecipitated as native copper when it comes into contact with this pickrite unit. So that's where New Afton as well is very unique. If you look at it, nowhere else in BC do you have the same abundance of native copper as you do at New Afton. And really that is what we saw in the Bertha exploration pit as well, was a lot of native copper, some chalcocite as well, which is another very rich copper sulfide. So about 80% of it can be copper. So this is looking at a system that has that potential for higher grade copper values. And we've now tested it to 450 meters depth, and we've now got the confidence as well from these strong structural controls and the confirmation of our exploration model. We're right now doing a 350 meter step out to the west to hit the system at depth, so hitting the down plunge extent and hitting that below the 450 meters that we've already extended it to. So goal here being that we can outline at least the initial outline of what the extent of this system could look like. Of course, there's always room for it to potentially expand further, but we're also only doing 2,800 meters of drilling. So if we can showcase a very large outline right off the bat that's equivalent in size to something like the New Afton system, then I think we're off to a very good start.
Wow, you just said a lot. There's a lot to unpack there. So let's go one by one. The Bertha pit. Tell me about the Bertha pit. Is the Bertha pit the same as the south showing, or are those two different surface outcrops?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when we initially showed up and checked out, we found the Bertha exploration pit. That was more in the spring of this year. We took samples of it along the strike of the pit and came back with samples almost 17% copper. So it was showcasing the high grade nature. After that, we walked it out. So we walked out about 400 meters to the west towards the Bertha South occurrence. Is the next spot that we found of surface mineralization. Basically the same host rock, the same surface mineralization. So we're seeing it as an extension of the system, but Bertha South occurs at a much higher level above what I think is the underlying plunge of the system itself, which extends from the Bertha exploration pit. So the Bertha South occurrence is what we're testing with our hole number 8 here. So testing that down plunge deeper extent of the system at Bertha South.
I see. So hole 8 is stepping out all the way over there to the west.
Yeah.
Okay. The Picrite. Okay, let's talk Picrite, because I've probably studied 30 or 40 different porphyries in the last 5 years, and that is a rare word. But what you just explained to me is that New Afton, it's a very rich host rock that traps the copper sulfides and can actually generate, like an upgrading from chalcopyrite all the way to chalcocite or native copper in a supergene setting. So tell me about the Picrite here. How extensive is it? Where is it exactly? What is it?
Yeah, sounds good. So Picrite, it's an ultramafic rock, so it's got a lot of olivine in it. When you see it, it's very iron rich, and it's because of that iron rich capacity of it that it's a good reducing agent. So when you have this oxidation process, you're stripping the chalcopyrite or bornite of its copper content. And then when you have those floating around in solution and they come into contact with this reducing agent, this iron-rich Picrite unit, they start to precipitate out the copper. So it's a good chemical reactive unit. With that, though, it is relatively impermeable. So you don't really get mineralization within the Picrite itself, but along its boundaries. So when we're looking at our IP anomaly, we see a very large Picrite unit that forms the base, the footwall of our chargeability. With that, that's more of a competent unit, but it showcases the margins with where it was in contact with volcanic host rock. And then what you've got is this intrusive unit that expands and exploits that contact. That's very structurally controlled, but this potentially is the source intrusive unit. Comes up, exploits that contact, blows things apart, shatters the volcanic and the Picrite boundary. And so it's good because then you've got this environment that's brecciated, you've got this environment where you've got shattered lenses, pieces of the Picrite as well. So everywhere that you get that supergene oxidation process, the reprecipitation of native copper, wherever it comes into contact with, whether it's the competent Picrite unit in the footwall or these shattered lenses of Picrite within the chargeability anomaly, you can expect to get reprecipitation of native copper.
Very interesting. So along the Picrite, you're seeing native copper and chalcocite so far in the core drilling?
Yeah, so that's what we saw within the Bertha exploration pit. It was the model that we moved forward with the drilling, was that we need to find where these Picrite lenses could be within the chargeability, and we also needed to hit the competent Picrite unit in the footwall. So I haven't spoken too much to the exact locations or how much mineralization we're seeing or anything like that. But essentially, we're seeing consistency with what we had seen at the Bertha exploration pit.
Okay. And so it seems to me, based upon the news release and the presentation and what you've said publicly so far, the IP chargeability is showing you the copper sulfides pretty well. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's showcasing the supergene oxidation zone very well. So that's really what's lighting up, is that alteration that's associated with it. Because you would have had pyrite content in there, maybe you would have had some magnetite. So what's happening is these hydrothermal fluids that are oxygenated, these are reacting with that. They're causing a lot of rusting, essentially hematite forming, and that shows up within the chargeability. But within that as well, you're getting mineralization, and you'll get mineralization that is fine-grained, hidden within some of the strongest altered zones. As well, you're going to get some very visible mineralization wherever you see those Picrite lenses from that shattered contact.
Okay, so the supergene blanket, essentially, I mean, based upon the IP chargeability, it looks like it might extend to 200 meters depth. I mean, is that accurate? And how deep do you have to go to get into sulfides?
Yeah, so, well, there is sulfide content within the chargeability. But essentially what we've done with that, up to 450 meters depth, we were trying to test, well, how far can this supergene oxidation go? We know at New Afton, it extends, it varies kind of from the eastern end, it's about 250 meters deep. As you go down plunge of it, it goes to about 450, 500 meters deep. So what we've done is we've tested up to 450 meters depth. We're still within the supergene oxidation. So that chargeability anomaly still confirms that this supergene oxidation really continues to depth as well. So that's the plan with hole 8 here, is we're going to try and test deeper than that. So try and see, does this supergene horizon continue beyond 450 meters vertical depth? And if so, how deep do we have to go? So with that, we'll test it. I can see in the geophysics that there's a good possibility there that will continue beyond 600 meters. But whether or not that stays within supergene or that we start getting into a transition zone with the hypogene zone underneath it, that's something that we'll have to see with hole number 8.
Okay, this is a very unusual porphyry for me, Malcolm. Explain how supergene oxidation extends to 600 meters depth, like how does this form? Has this been tilted and moved around post formation?
No, it's strongly structurally controlled. It starts with a very high level emplacement to begin with, and then what you end up with is very oxygenated waters that get recirculated through this system. So as well, when it's highly fractured, it's highly permeable. You allow for that migration of oxygenated fluids. So really, this level of oxidation is very intense. It can also extend to very deep levels. So it's definitely interesting. You're looking at, and it's really at that point, it's ticking off a number of boxes where for it to be oxidized, you need some sort of sulfide or metal content. You need fracture systems and the permeability within this for the transport of these oxygenated waters. And you need a system that has those strong structural controls to really control that fluid flow as well. So really that's what we're looking at and working with so far with this model. So it's definitely unique. And especially with that, if you end up with a large amount of native copper, really that's very unique, as you said, within British Columbia as well. Really New Afton and is the only one that you can really point to that has a high level of native copper abundance in British Columbia.
Yeah, because usually when we're talking supergene, we're talking about just the chalcocite, and it's just a blanket. It's like a 10 meter or 20 meter thick blanket, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not quite like a supergene system that you might see in South America. You also don't really see that enrichment within the supergene that you might see in other porphyry type systems. So as with New Afton, the grades were very consistent, really. While you were in supergene or going into the hypogene, they're both high grade. You don't really get an enrichment within the supergene horizon, but it's high grade, much higher grade than the average that you get in British Columbia.
Okay, very good. So in the presentation, slide 10, which will be in this video, you identify 900 meters strike length with potential down dip extension extending to, I don't know, 600 or 700 or so meters. I mean, obviously, you don't know how deep it extends because you're still testing it. But based upon what you've learned so far, is that scale still accurate? Is a strike length about 900 or so meters?
Well, with this drilling that we're doing, we'll have tested out about 400 meters of that. It's really showcased to us what the exploration model, the accuracy of what we had developed in terms of the geophysics that we had. So the geophysics were good up to about 600 to just over 600 meters vertical depth was the extent of our IP system. With that to go, we'll have to use perhaps some other methods to see what a deeper level extension could look like. But we're seeing very good consistency with what we have. So when you're looking at that 900 meter strike extent, that will include more of the down plunge of this system. So essentially where it's coming to surface is where you see that high chargeability anomaly. So it's that large pink blob kind of, well, just south of the Bertha exploration pit. So that's where the surface manifestation is. In that area, the primary structural control is really striking towards the southwest. And with that, as you go towards the west, you're following down plunge of this system, down dip, down plunge. And that is going to be where you see the system develop further to depth. And that was similar to New Afton. New Afton does extend for, I believe, just about 1,400 meters strike length, but that's all going down plunge of the system. So it's got a fairly steep plunge and near vertical dip to it.
The copper, the high grade copper samples, the rock grab samples at surface at Bertha, is this chalcocite? Is this malachite? Is this bornite?
Yeah. So that was mostly chalcocite. with a little bit of native copper in it. So interestingly, there's some variation within the host mineralization. So where you tend to get more chalcocite, you tend to get a little less native copper, and where you get more native copper, you get less chalcocite. The samples we took there, they were largely chalcocite, and the chalcocite, of course, oxidizes to malachite as well at surface, but when you look at it in its unaltered form, you're seeing a lot of chalcocite.
I got it. Okay. So the drill program, the news release said expanded to 2,800 meters. Is that still accurate?
Yeah, so we're going to be shooting for up to that 2,800 meters. I think we'll finish off close to around that level. And then we're going to take a break here to get those assays back. Once we have the assays in hand, then we'll be able to really check them against the exploration model, see where the highest grade intervals are. Then we'll be able to come back early spring. We're fully funded for another 6,000 meters, and we can really effectively drill target follow up on that. So yeah, we'll be looking to return to Bertha, certainly, I think, early spring of 2026.
Okay, so 8 holes drilled at Bertha when all is said and done for a total of about 2,800 meters. Have any of the holes been rushed to the lab, or are you just sending them normally? And, you know, I always hate to ask this question, when do we see the results? But just rough timeline, do you think we'll get all the results from this drill program in January and February?
Yeah, I think we can expect to have all the results in hand probably by January. So with that, we are expecting some assays from the first couple of holes. We haven't rushed any, as really these days with the labs, you can often try and rush samples, but it doesn't make a difference because everyone's trying to rush samples. So we're actually trying a little bit of a different method. So something that is very convenient is the fact that the lab is less than an hour's drive by highway from the project area. So that has allowed us to basically make small deliveries almost every couple of days. So we're able to provide small batches of samples, and that actually can get pushed through the labs a little bit quicker, just naturally without having to rush anything. It's when you do large dumps of samples that really slows the processes down, and you can be delayed in getting assays back. So I'm expecting that we'll be able to get assays. The first couple of assays here should be coming in shortly. That will give us time to look at what we have, really develop things in a systematic and methodical form, and then we can start dispensing that to the market as well, to showcase what we believe we have seen as a very large scale alkalic copper gold system at Bertha.
Okay, so get all the assays back by the end of January, do an update on the model, and then plan the next phase of drilling. You said spring, so I assume that's end of March or April. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty good timeline to aim for. It'll be dependent on the weather, but the great thing about the topography in this area is it's low-lying topography, so rolling hills. We have highway access basically to within 5 kilometers of the Bertha target, and then it's just well-maintained forestry road beyond that. So I've actually been up there. I was up there this past spring in March. Was able to get up there without any issues with a Subaru Forester. So this area is quite easy for access. So it's definitely conducive to moving in earlier for starting off as soon as we can in the spring.
So speaking of highway access, the Sonic target is literally right off a highway. It's actually an even bigger target. And I believe you're going to be drilling that as well in spring 2026. So tell us about that one.
Yeah, so with that one, we're just awaiting the permit to come through for Sonic. I'm anticipating that we should have it by the spring. Sonic, what we are waiting on is another 1,500 soil samples that we collected this fall. We did quite a bit of prospecting, some rock grab sampling as well. With that, we already have a 4.5 square kilometer soil anomaly at Sonic with well, you've got copper values just over 4,500 ppm and gold of just over 500 ppb. So in all ways, shape, or form, it's looking like a large alkalic copper-gold system. It's significantly larger in terms of scale than what we have at Bertha, but that's to be expected. Bertha, if it's like New Afton, New Afton is just over 90 million tons, but has about 2 billion pounds of copper, 2 million ounces of gold. So it packs a punch for a small system. But something like Sonic, that's looking larger. So we're using the Ajax deposit as a comparable. We're seeing some strong similarities. It's just about 30 kilometers to the northeast as well of our Sonic area. And with that, once we have the soil, then plan would be to do some IP in the spring based on the soil sampling. And then following that IP would be drilling. So we donate a few of the meters. I'd say we're probably looking at about of that remaining 6,000 meters, maybe 2/3 going to Bertha and a third testing the scale potential at the Sonic Zone. So potentially adding another large porphyry target to the portfolio. But I think the right way to approach this is let's go for that high grade, mid tonnage porphyry system at Bertha. And then we can go and we can look for that larger tonnage, but just showcase the scale of it without going all in on the drilling. Because if you go all in the drilling, it's going to require more drilling with a larger alkalic porphyry system like that. So the focus will be Bertha, but Sonic can add further added value to the project area. And then, of course, we also have Kirby and Lodi in the south that offer further upside, but we're also not going to go after all the targets all at once.
All right, so let's go back to Bertha, because I think a lot of people, especially today, when they think about porphyry copper deposits, they're thinking about like the billion-ton ones in South America with average grades of like 0.5% or 0.6%. And, like a lot of investors might think that you need a billion-ton, deposit to be economic. But tell us about, with what this supergene, this extensive supergene oxidation zone can do at Bertha, and maybe the scale can actually work, at a lot smaller, amount of tonnage.
Yeah, certainly. So that's something that I think is important to keep in mind. And it's really speaking back to as well, when I was first looking to do staking of the Kolos project, with that, I have a number of connections with major mining companies from my past, and also showcasing different projects, been involved in quite a few projects. But really, it was asking around, making sure that what we're looking for is also what the majors might be looking for. So in those conversations, really what kept coming up in every conversation I had was they want another New Afton type system. So they want high grade, they want mid tonnage when they're looking at British Columbia. So with that, it was, all right, what fits the bill? In southern British Columbia, it would be the New Afton type system. So we went out, we were specifically looking for that. We worked with a conceptual model that I've developed over the last several years with my brother Cameron Dorsey, and used that to really target from a larger, broader perspective into a smaller scale. Where would we look first? So yeah, do you need a large deposit in this area for it to be economic? No, grade and smaller tonnage is actually more attractive for the majors who are looking for these deposits, as well as location. So where the Bertha target is located, we're surrounded by 3 operating mines, New Afton being the closest, just 30 kilometers to the northeast. All these mines will require additional feed, especially New Afton within the next 6 years is when they're looking to run out. With that, they need that mill feed. So any brand new major discovery in the area is certainly going to be of interest for acquisition for additional feed. And with that as well, it's much more economic, I think, for a junior explorer, in this case, to be looking for a smaller tonnage system with higher grade in areas that require mill feed. If I try going for something that's over 500 million tons, it's going to require a lot of drilling, and it's going to be difficult to do as a junior without doing an earn-in JV. I'm not looking to do an earn-in JV on the project right now, so I'm focusing on that higher grade, smaller tonnage, something that I know is already going to be attractive in itself for acquisition potential. And then we'll add on the added incentive here that with minimal drilling, the Sonic Zone potentially being a much larger, over 500 million ton type system, as well as Kirby and Lodi is always something else as well that we can add into that. But really, I see those as adding added incentive value to the project, not the main focus of the project.
When you were having those conversations with larger mining companies and they said higher grade, it doesn't need to be 1 billion tons. We want higher grade in a good in a good location, that could be open pitable or at least have a starter pit and then go underground later.
Yeah.
What do they mean by higher grade? Is that 0.8% copper? Is that 1% copper? Or is that higher?
Yeah, I would say there would be interest once you get over 0.5%. They're going to be much more keen even once you get towards 0.7%.
Okay.
And that's looking at the copper value itself, so not copper equivalent or anything like that. So that is, I believe, the values that they're going to be looking for. And that is when you look at New Afton can deliver those type of values. And you have to keep in mind as well that the Supergene oxidation horizon, you're looking at oxidized copper, and you're looking at mostly native copper, as well as chalcocite, which is 80% copper by weight. So you're looking at basically the two best things for copper content within an oxidized environment.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet, if you ask me. At Bertha, are there some byproducts as well? There's going to be a little bit of gold here and maybe a few other metals.
Yeah, there's going to be some gold. You could also expect, if it is similar to New Afton, this might be something looking into later, but they are looking at platinum and palladium content as well at New Afton. But principally, it'll be gold will be the secondary.
Okay, very good. And then final question to put a bow tie on it, Malcolm. Tell us about the company's current share structure and funding.
So in terms of funding, we actually just closed a $5.3 million financing. 3.6 million of that was flow through, vast majority being critical flow through, or critical charity flow through. So with that, I think I've seen some people have been asking questions about that as well, wondering about, well, you raised a whole bunch of flow through, is that going to come back to you later on? But what we did with the charity flow through was making sure that all this was going into the hands of high net worth individuals, strong hands that are going to hold. So really, with all the flow through that we raised, I'd say greater than 90% of it went into high net worth hands. So with that, I'm confident that as we move forward, we're going to see that not come back to us. And what it does allow us to do is being fully funded for up to that, at least 9,000 meters of drilling, I would say. So we still have another 6,000 meters that we can do that we're fully funded for. And added to that, so share structure, we're 83 million shares outstanding. We're really looking at a market cap here of about 14 million market cap. And then about 12% of that total shares outstanding is still owned by management. So myself, I control about 4 million shares of the company. Majority of those were at 30 cents. So you can believe I do have an incentive here to get that price back up here. And I think we can certainly look forward to that here with the upcoming news flow. And then with the news flow coming out over the new year on the drilling, we'll almost right away be going back into drilling in the spring. So plenty to look forward to here. We're still, even with 83 million shares, I'd say we're tightly held, as the vast majority of those are just in high net worth retail hands. So individuals who I know, who I can call up. So this is, I think, very strong setup for what we're looking forward to.
Malcolm Dorsey, Torr Metals, thank you for your time, and I look forward to doing this again when we have more results to talk about.
Definitely. Thanks for having me, Robert.